I thought today would be a good day to document the remaining pubs in Sheffield, or what were once pubs. So this was the Alexandra pub, and it was on the site of the Alexandra playhouse that held about 4,000, must have been a massive playhouse, and that was actually knocked down in the early 1900s, I understand, for road extensions. So just there you've got the Alexandra pub, which is now student accommodation, and then just to the right of it and behind it was where Sheffield Castle once would have stood. So I'll take you on a journey around the pubs where they were in Sheffield, and there may be still a few pubs left. So I'm on the Wicker at the moment by the Wicker Arches. Guessing that was the old station hotel. It isn't anymore. Looks like another food place. Now Sheffield must have lost hundreds if not thousands of pubs since the 1950s, and I'm just going to capture a few of the remaining ones, or where they still exist as pubs. Right, so this is another pub. I don't know what it was called, but you can see the sign on the top, Ward's Brewery. People remember when Ward's was actually brewed in Sheffield. I don't know if it still exists anymore, but we're right by the side of the ring road, cutting right through the Wicker. So we'll progress up next to the Big Gun, which I think has just shut down. But correct me if I'm wrong on any of the information, I only go on what I know. So we're outside the Big Gun pub in Sheffield, at the top end of Wicker. I think it's only just shut down because my dad mentioned it last week, no longer being a pub. But you can see the Wicker, it's not how I remember it. It had lots of thriving shops down here, and this is where the Wicker Herbalists started in Sheffield. I mean, there was about 7 Wicker Herbalists and now 0 Wicker Herbalists left, but we'll carry on moving up into Sheffield town centre. We're right beside the River Don down here, Ladies Bridge, oldest crossing over the River Don into Sheffield. So here we had another Sheffield pub. I knew it was Brewer on the Bridge, right next to, let's just show you Ward's Brewery at the side. Lost all our major breweries in Sheffield, but I'm sure there'll be pubs that you remember that I don't remember. It's like anywhere, we all remember different parts of Sheffield. And there's another pub on the other side, I'm just going to show you that. So here we have the Tap and Barrel at the bottom of Waingate. I think this one closed at the start of lockdown back in 2020, or it became something else, but we'll carry on up Castlegate into Sheffield. Once a thriving area, and dead as a dodo now. And let's see if I can spot a policeman walking around Sheffield. I saw 2 in Dinnington last week. I went up and actually said to them, will they mind if I took your photo, because nobody believed they're on our streets anymore, and even they had to laugh at that one. I wish people would act more naturally on video. So we have the Cannon on Castle Street. It's not been a pub for quite a long time. It's been done up, I think it's just apartments now. But I remember we used to come in from this side of Sheffield, either parked up or caught the bus in, and you used to be able to smell them actually brewing around here. It used to stink absolutely awful as a kid. So at the bottom of Dixon Lane, it used to be the main thoroughfare into the market area when the Rag and Tag market was here. It also used to have Barrow Boys down here. Back in the 70s and 80s it was a really thriving shopping area, and look at it now. But here you have the Norfolk Arms, which must have once been a very thriving pub when it was a market area around here. And I'm going to find you another one just down Shude Hill, and you'll not even know about this one, or the majority of people won't. I didn't know about it till I went investigating, so we'll pop down Shude Hill to the next one. So we're now right under Commercial Street in Sheffield, and this, back in the 1980s, was the Barrow Boy. Now I was told it was going to reopen as a Rag and Tag pub after the Rag and Tag market, which was just down there. But that was, you know, a couple of years ago, and nothing's really ever happened. The only thing I've heard about this place is they found a big old-fashioned Land Rover actually inside this place. It's quite large when you actually get in. And it's really strange because at the back of it, it's actually bricked up as though there was a tunnel network behind here, actually under Commercial Street. So let's go and find the next pub on the way. But this was a Scar pub from the 1980s, so I don't know how long before that it was a pub. Other people may be able to tell me, because I'm sure I'm going to find other information out today. So we're now in Fitzalan Square in Sheffield. It used to be an absolutely thriving area, this. Right next to this, you can see the tall Pointer building was a pub. I can't recollect the name on that one, but right next to it was a newsreel cinema. So this must have been once a very thriving pub, and this one goes back 100 years or more. And there's another even more famous pub actually in Fitzalan Square. I'm just going to turn around on that now. So here you can see what was once the Marples pub. Probably one of the most famous pubs in Sheffield, probably for the wrong reasons, because it got a direct hit in the Second World War. About 70 people lost their lives. Now, it was a grand old building, it looked really nice. This is a rebuild from the 50s and 60s. Nothing like it used to look, but the Marples pub that used to be at the bottom is now the cash shop. Back in the 80s it was quite a thriving pub from what I remember. And upstairs it looks like they've got flats upstairs, but the original Marples was a pub and also a hotel. So we'll now pop down into Pond Street and catch things down there. So as we now walk down into a totally deserted Pond Street, you can see up there, that was Top Rank, Sweets, Steelers, Barry Noble's, Roxy, whatever you want to call it. Back in the 80s, really thriving nightclub. Could get a bit of trouble in there though, compared with probably other nightclubs. But it was a large nightclub, you can imagine. So that was, I think it was a couple of stories high inside. So we'll walk down Pond Street and see what else we can find around Pond Street. So we're now in an absolutely deserted Pond Street, and I'll just give you a quick flash down there in a minute. But you can see the old Penny Black pub. I think that's a rebuild. I think the Penny Black pub probably goes back much longer, probably into the 19th century. But just here we've got a new flat Vista flat development in Sheffield. I just want to show you up here where you can see the Odeon Cinema. That was the Fiesta nightclub. All the top stars came up there, like Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones. I don't think they should have ever shut that down as a night spot. I can't understand why we moved from there to the Crucible. I know the Crucible's a great place, but I understand the Fiesta. I mean, I was too young to go in the Fiesta, but I understand that was a really fantastic place, so why shut the place down? So we'll find the oldest pub in Sheffield next. So we have the oldest commercial building in Sheffield, the old Queen's Head. I understand it was originally the washroom for the Manor Castle. It's actually up for let at the moment. And you can just see how it goes against the new and the Pond Street bus station. But it's absolutely deserted down here. I'll give you one flash down Pond Street when I get back up to the top before we go into town to look at more pubs up there. So that's a quick look down into Pond Street. Absolutely dead. They spent an awful lot of money on a bus station that's no longer used. Now if they really wanted net zero, they would have provided us with a decent bus or tram service in the first place. I used to come down here from work, and try and start getting the train, or even when I was getting the train I could come down here, and there used to be star sellers here. I used to pick up a star on this corner as I was coming out of Sheffield. So just here, where you can see the Banker's Draft, was actually the Midland Bank as I knew it. So it's a modern Wetherspoons pub really. The old bank used to be able to go down into the actual hole in the road from there. So we're now going to pop down Queen Street, where there's quite a few pubs down Queen Street that I remember. So now we're here at what I knew was the boardwalk on Snig Hill. It was actually destroyed in the Second World War, and it was originally the Black Swan, and it was called the Mucky Duck. I used to spend my evenings salsa dancing in there back in 2000, so you know, it's just one pub after another, and in the bottom of it there used to be like a top quality, I think, Italian hairdresser from what I remember. We're right across from what was originally the headquarters of South Yorkshire Police, just there. So we'll now have a walk down Bank Street and onto Queen Street. Here we have the job centre on Bank Street, and this is Romeo and Juliet's nightclub, which was probably my favourite nightclub in Sheffield. So it's now a job centre for what jobs? Does anybody know of any decent jobs left in Sheffield? So we'll carry on walking down Bank Street to the next one, to the Three Cranes. So we're now at the Three Cranes pub, sort of place that would have been full of solicitors and bankers at lunchtime. It's had a big refit during lockdown, and it's nothing like the Three Cranes that I remember. It looks a little bit more exclusive. It looks like it's either flats or hotel rooms above it. It looks very pricey now. So we'll carry on down here. It's spitting with rain, so I don't know if I'll have to go back to the car and do this video another time. So we're now at West Bar. Crazy roadworks going on here for a Dutch style roundabout that's going to cause real problems, and they were advised not to do it by the planners, and they've carried on doing it. But here we are at I think this was called the Washington pub, I could be wrong. I remember dropping my granddad off here 30 years ago for a Coldstream Guards meeting. More flats for students, I guess, or whatever. In fact, it actually says link recruitment, so it's not actually even flats, it's offices of some kind, but everything's been erased from Sheffield. Now in Scotland Street in Sheffield, we've got the Crow Inn here. There was another hotel along here or a pub called the Queen's Hotel, I think it was. That's been knocked down. But all it is around here now is student flats. Used to be a really thriving industrial area around here, but now it's just student accommodation. So it's destruction of what industrial basin we have left to make it very difficult to run an engineering business in Sheffield. They don't want them anymore. So we'll pop to the Free Tons next. I'm outside what was once the headquarters of Midland Bank and HSBC in Sheffield. No longer. We're on Silver Street Head. It's completely unrecognisable around here. But there's one thing that's stayed, and that's the Three Tons pub. A proper Sheffield pub. But my understanding is, I think at weekends it's going to be for men that cross-dress. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I heard, that weekends was going to be for that kind of thing. So we'll find the next pub, but this would have been frequented by bankers and solicitors. Even the solicitors have gone round here as well as the bankers. So I'm on either Broad Street or Broad Lane, going up to the University roundabout, and we're outside what's known as Fagan's pub. I knew everybody I worked with used to go into Fagan's. I think they used to sell a good pint of Guinness in there. So we'll now pop back down Campo Lane. I forgot about Trippett Lane, so I'm on Trippett's Lane now at Trippett's Bar. I feel so disorientated in Sheffield. No longer feels like my city. But I think that's the purpose. I think they're trying to erase our past. If you can't remember your past, you lose pride. So there we got Trippett's Bar, and I'm going to swing round and show you the grapes. I think there's a wall art down the side of this, or the next pub, so let's just see. So you can see a Guinness advert on the side of that. So we've now got the Dog and Partridge. Seems like all they're doing now is catering for students in Sheffield. They're not working class pubs anymore, any of these. In a very, what would have once been a very working class area. Just give you another angle on it on Bailey Street, just off Bailey Street. We've got one more down here on Fitzalan. I think it's called Maggie May's, which is a modern pub, not been around that long. It's the old Anglo Works, which looks quite nice. I'm going to spin round in a minute, but I didn't think there were that many pubs left in Sheffield, but seem to be doing more than I thought. So you've got Maggie May's, but I love how they've kept it like that with the writing on the building. I think it looks really fantastic, that. But we should play more on our heritage, really should be. We had a brand to the world and we've just crashed it. So we're now back on Campo Lane. You can see what was once the Wigan Pen. I remember it being a solicitors, bankers pub at lunchtime, and then quite a good night spot at night. From what I remember, it's now, or it was, the Craft and Dough, which looks like that shut down, I think, in lockdown. So that one's going a bit to rack and ruin, to what I remember. But there's graffiti all on this area, which there was never when I used to work down here. So I'm outside the Stone House, top end of High Street, might be Church Street this little bit. Now originally there was two sides to the Stone House. There was a Stone House side and then there was a Shambles side. The Shambles side was made to look like York, being out in the streets, and that actually got knocked down in the mid-1980s when they were building Tudor Square. This part of the pub carried on up to about 2005. But what I remember was, where you can see the two windows at the bottom, was actually a big Georgian doorway and entrance with steps up into it. So it looks very sombre to how I remember the Stone House. So we'll carry on the journey. So we're midway up High Street. You can see McDonald's across there. And somewhere around here, I think it was that doorway there, if it goes down, somewhere around here anyway, was the Crazy Daisy. And that's where, I think it was also known as the Geisha Bar, if I'm right. I might, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but wherever it was just around here, you went down some steps, steep steps into it, is where the Human League met up, well, Phil Oakley met up with the two girls in Sheffield when Human League went from being M17 and Human League to Human League and Heaven 17. They split off at that point, and that's when Human League got all their success and Heaven 17 got quite a bit of success as well. So I'm now in Tudor Square. You can see the Crucible down there. Lyceum's just behind those lorries, and we've got a pub here called the Head of Steam. I don't know if this is a recent pub because I never remember this from my youth anyway, or my teenage years coming out drinking. So I'm now at the Graduate on Surrey Street, and I remember the Surrey pub being here with the fringe hairdressers on top. I didn't know if it came all the way down. I only think it came to that first part up there, where you can see it up there. I think this Graduate's doubling the size of what the original pub was. It's certainly aimed at students again into it with the Graduate. And I was actually going to redo, or I've redone this video because there was a signage up there. I didn't think history was prejudiced in any way, and I don't think the sign's out to do with the pub. That's why I've redone the video. I think this is Sheffield City Council. History shouldn't be prejudiced in any way. It should be about history, not whatever. So That's the Graduate pub. We'll just pop down Howard Street and get the pubs down Howard Street. So we're now on Howard Street. You can see the Globe pub, but all the area around it, once Whittle Mesters and light industry and cutlery type works, completely obliterated by the new development for Sheffield University. I don't know whether it's the Hallam one or whether it's the other university, but just walking all over our culture and traditions. So we're now outside the Howard Street Hotel. I think it's frequented by football supporters on a Saturday afternoon, usually the away supporters. I'm sure there was another pub on Howard Street called the Cossack, if I'm right. People probably can put me up to speed on that. So we're now on Charles Street, which is behind Union and Pinston Street. So we've got the Roebuck Tavern here. It's double the size if you look at it as it was in old pictures. It's no longer a traditional Sheffield pub, is it? I think it's become very plasticated, like most of the pubs in Sheffield. I'm going to pop down now. A bit further down, I think Berlin's may have been just down here. So I'm now on Arundel Gate in Sheffield. As far as I remember, this was an underpass here rather than a roundabout. And then, if I remember rightly, it says Code. I think there was a nightclub here called Code, but I'm sure this was where Berlin's was. So if I'm wrong, folks, please remind me, because I'm so disorientated. It's not my Sheffield anymore. So I'm looking down the moor at the moment, and I can't remember any pubs down here other than the Offenbrow. But I can't remember where the Offenbrow actually was. And that was like a German style place, if I can remember rightly. Like they do for the beer festivals. So we'll pop up to the next one. Right, so I think I'm on Charter Row now, which is the road running behind the moor, and I mistakenly thought this is where Berlin's was, but I got this road mixed up with the one I've just shown you. So on Eyre Street, so that's now, well, that's the Roxy Ballroom, but I think it was called something else, and people who used it will remember what that was originally called, the Roxy Ballroom. So we're now looking at where Henry's used to be, Henry's Bar. I used to spend most of my Friday and Saturdays in there along with other pubs. First pub I ever remember getting my lager served in a vase. So the next area to go up to is Barker's Pool. So I'm now in Barker's Pool area. You can see the Fountain Precinct, and there is a pub here called Manhattan. But what I remember is Josephine's, and if my memory serves me rightly, you came up the steps and Josephine's was somewhere around there, or it could have even been there, I don't know. So probably you can remember exactly where Josephine's was, the nightclub. So I'm now on Leopold Street in Sheffield. I'm going to wrap the first part of my tour around Sheffield pubs up. So we got All in One Bar. I think it was it All Bar One? I'm sure it was All in Bar. I can't remember what the original name was of this pub. Then we've got the Museum pub over there. But I remember it before Orchard Square, and there was a pub somewhere around here, if I can remember rightly, because it was like one of the last pubs at night I went in. So people can probably tell me where the pub actually was, because Orchard Square was sort of built in the mid-80s, and somewhere around this side it was a proper old-fashioned Sheffield pub just round here. There's another one there called the Orchard Terrace. So I'll wrap it up, this video, and then I'll go up West Street and Division Street, which we didn't frequent that much, but there was a few pubs up there we went to in the past.